ACB the Man.
My name is ACB the Man, and welcome to the s.a.m recap number 2 for s.a.m number 3. s.a.m is Slightly Above Mediocre. It's a time where the members of Clan Epic get together and kind of talk about PvP. So if you're good at PvP, you can help out people who are a little bit less skilled than you. If you think you're less skilled, you can learn a little bit. If you're mediocre, you can kind of talk to others, so the average is slightly above mediocre. So this week we talked about individual skills mostly, and you playing as yourself. So first up, we talked about ability usage. We talked about grenades. Now, it sort of depends on your game style what grenades you use, but you need to determine whether you're going to be using that grenade defensively or offensively, and if you're using it defensively or offensively, how the specific grenades you have can be defensive or offensive. Some are more defensive than others, some are more offensive than others. For example, the lightning grenade on Striker Titans can be offensive, but it's very defensive in walling off areas. The fusion grenades on Sunbreaker Titans and Sunsinger Warlocks is a very offensive grenade, but can be used defensively if you need it. So just be aware of how your grenades work and how you can use them both offensively and defensively. Almost every grenade can be used for either, but they are definitely used in different ways. Next up, melees. If you are close enough, melee somebody, they will take a lot of damage from a charged melee, and some melees do certain abilities that are just good. For example, the Striker Titans melee just does a lot of damage. The Sunsinger melee can give you an overshield. The Defender Titan, if you get a kill, can give you an overshield. Warlocks can give you, or the Woodwalker Warlocks can give you some grenades back and stuff like that. So there are different abilities for the melees, and just be aware of what they are. Melee, if you're close, melees can also do a ton of damage. So if you like shoot somebody with shotgun or melee, that's why that's very effective. If you shoot somebody with the primary hip fire and melee in them with the charged melee, it can do a lot of damage. And so melees are not just there for fun, they are useful. Next up, we have super usage. When should you use your super? Well, in 6s, use your super all the time. You see a lot of Striker Titans getting one kill, but then they can get another Fist of Havoc, and do well with that. So use your super when you can in 6s, because there's a lot of enemies to use it on. In 3s, you may hold on to it a little bit, but generally you want to use the super as quick as you can in 3s to start getting orbs and try to chain some of those supers. You may hold on to a certain super, like maybe a smash or a tether if the enemy team has a roaming super, but generally you want one person on your team to get a super fast and use it as quick as they can, and then maybe hold on to your supers strategically. But in 6s, use them all the time. So next we talked about gunplay a little bit. First off, practice getting headshots. This should be obvious, but headshots do more damage than any other shot. It's pretty much in every game. So practice getting those headshots. Start noticing damage numbers. Guardians roughly have 200 health. Some can have less if they have less armor, some can have more if they have more armor, but roughly 200 health. You notice headshots do a little bit more. But for example, if you have a hand cannon, most hand cannons can 3-tap. So if you shoot somebody in the head with an IS Luna and you see, oh man, that did like 90 something damage, and you shoot somebody in the chest and you're like, oh, maybe that did only 30 damage, that can give you an idea of how many shots per head, or how many headshots or how many body shots you can do. I think those are the wrong numbers for the IS Luna, because IS Luna can headshot and then 2 body shot somebody. That's neither here nor there, but just be aware of those numbers so you know kind of how many shots you need if you're not aware of that on your gun. If you don't know your gun is a 4 headshot kill, those numbers can help you figure that out. Gunplay, you may need to switch per game, per mode, or per map, depending on your playstyle. If you don't have a specific set playstyle and you use all sorts of different guns, or can use different guns, if it's a smaller map like Anomaly, you may use shotgun, hand cannon. If it's a longer map like maybe Frontier, you might could use scout rifle, sniper rifle. Just know that you're not stuck with a gun. You can change your gun per game. You can change it per mode or per map change mid-game if you're just losing. If you're running a scout rifle for whatever reason and you're just dying and dying and dying and not getting anything done, maybe switch up to a pulse or a hand cannon. Or if you're running a shotgun and just dying over and over and over, somebody maybe has a trespass and just murdering you, maybe switch to fusion, maybe switch to sniper, something like that. Don't be afraid to switch your guns if they're not working for you. Next up, we have movement. Unless you're sniping, pretty much stay out of sniping lanes. Well, what's a sniper lane? If you can look further than maybe 10 yards in game, 10 meters in game, and see, like, and not see a wall or something, that's pretty much a sniper lane. There are some bigger spaces that aren't sniper lanes, but pretty much if it's a straight shot from where you are to far across the map, that's a sniper lane. Try to stay out of them. There's some maps you cannot help but being in them, but try to stay out of sniper lanes as much as possible if you're not using a sniper. Next up, we need to talk about baiting. Baiting is the art of showing up on somebody's radar and forcing them to come to you. You can use some narrow portions on maps or just use the radar itself. If you don't see an enemy but see them on the radar, maybe think about pushing forwards a little bit and then backing up so they will rush you. And maybe give you an advantage in an area where maybe there's a choke point or something, but possibly think about not running headstrong into something if you think an enemy might follow you and may be baited into a more favorable situation for yourself. Next up, I don't think we talked about it in the actual SAM, but rotating around the map. Once you get a kill, you want to move to another portion of the map, especially in threes, because if you have your enemies keep spawning near their teammates, they have numbers and have a chance to wipe you out. But especially in threes, if you keep rotating, they may spawn away from their teammates, and that can definitely help. Not so good in sixes, but in threes, you want to keep rotating around the map, forcing the enemies to continually move. And if you can keep getting kills, you can throw them off balance a little bit. I don't think we talked about in the actual SAM, but it's good to think about. Next up, be unpredictable. The predictable play is to run around the corner, running around the corner, not doing anything else, gonna be sniped head level. Always jump around corners if you can help it. Slide around corners. Do something. Find a direction that most people won't come from. Be unpredictable with what you do, because the more predictable you are, the more counterable you are. So next we have a topic called emote for the win, which is a little weird. There is a way to go third person without having to pull out a sword, and that's using an emote. Especially if you're playing threes and there's a map where enemies like to snipe or something. If you sit down, if you press down on the D-pad and sit down, or use an emote, you will go into third person and you get to see around the corner without the enemy being able to shoot you. For example, on the map Pantheon, there's a bunch of sniper lanes, and if you for some reason are slow or you're just running around to it, later you can emote and look around the corner, see if there's a sniper glint, and know where an enemy is without putting yourself in danger. It really applies only to threes, not so much sixes, but definitely if you're playing some threes, emote for the win. And then the last thing we sort of talked about was have an exit plan. Always think beyond your sort of gun battle you're in. We talked about a couple weeks ago how you want to run away if you're dying, you want to stay alive. Well, that is true. Have an exit plan of how to get away if the gun battle goes sour. Now, sometimes you cannot get away, but always think about where you are on the map. Think about which way you can run if you start to lose a gunfight, that kind of deal, what you can do. Like we talked about earlier with grenades being defensive, think about maybe running away and placing a grenade between you and an aggressor, that kind of thing. But always be thinking a little bit beyond your current gunfight. Unless you know you're going to win that gunfight, don't focus solely on that gunfight. Yes, you want to be able to shoot and get headshots and stuff, but that should be second nature if you play enough. And so I think that's pretty much it for this SAM. If you have any questions about this, you can leave them in the comments below. You can go to the Slack chat. If you are not a member of Clan Epic and you have questions or would like to see a little bit more, post that below. We just like to have fun and talk about the Crucible every week. And so that's what we're going to do. So just post your questions below or in the Slack chat, and we will try to get to them. Next week, we're going to talk a little bit more about team skills, that kind of thing. And so it's going to be a little bit more interesting than this. But if you want some tips on individual skills, please look back in the comments and or look back, sorry, in the description below and click on one of those topics.